Seeing two movies in theaters in one day and reviewing both of them in one video? What is this? Some kind of 2-for-1 deal? Yes, it is actually. You're welcome. What is up, everybody? Random Random Man here, bringing you not one, but two reviews in this video, as I just mentioned in the intro, in front of some of my Blu-ray collection as another change of scenery here, and I'm going to leave a time skip here in case you want to skip to the second/final review of the video. But first, I'm going to be talking about the espionage dark comedy, The Phoenician Scheme. So this is the latest film written, produced, and directed by Wes Anderson. Now, Wes Anderson is one of the few directors who you could call an auteur, in that any movie of his that you see, you can immediately tell it was made by him without even looking up the credits, with how his dry dialogue, his sense of humor, the symmetrical kind of nature of his formalism, and just the all-around filmmaking and craft. You know a Wes Anderson movie when you see one. And this movie follows an international businessman who has survived multiple assassination attempts against his life, and is trying to reunite with his only daughter, and also teams up with a tutor turned assistant to go ahead and deal with some more business dealings amidst a bunch of chaos that he has already previously endured. This film I was looking forward to for sure, because it is, again, the latest film by Wes Anderson, and he is certainly one of the most talented filmmakers working in Hollywood today. He's also known for his signature ensemble casts, all these crazy casts of people that he assembles to be in this film. And here, the lead of this movie, playing that aforementioned main character, is Benicio del Toro. He plays Jaja, and he previously worked with Wes Anderson on The French Dispatch. That movie contained three stories that intersected together, and he was the lead of the first one, The Concrete Masterpiece, I believe that it was called. That was my favorite of the three films in that collection there. And with Del Toro here as the lead of this movie, I mean, he makes it very clear that he is somebody who isn't the cleanest of people, and is also dealing with many hands around the title Phoenician scheme that he is trying to do. And like I said, he is trying to reunite with his estranged daughter, his only daughter, and then is also trying to go around with all the different business partners that previously he had relationships with, and then also trying to go against one he suspects that murdered his wife and the father, or the mother, I should say, the mother of his daughter here. Del Toro is a class act. I say that often for many actors of his stature, because not just seeing how he has previously won an Academy Award, but also seeing all the line of work that he has done over the course of decades that he's been acting. And with his character here, I think he is one of the better main characters that Wes Anderson has created, because he's not the most likable guy in one sense, but then you also see like how his mind works, and he is trying to just go around and be charismatic in some way, while also trying to get his dealings in the best way possible. And I would say this is one of Del Toro's better performances that I've seen lately, and maybe even in general. And that's quite saying something, as, I loved him in Traffic, which he won his Oscar for, and then playing the titular revolutionary Che Guevara in Steven Soderbergh's two-part Che film, Traffic, also by Soderbergh. And with the rest of the supporting cast, there's a lot of people to mention, but there's two other main leads that I want to give special mentions to. Mia Threepleton plays the nun daughter of Jaja. She is Kate Winslet's daughter in real life, by the way, and you can tell she is trying to be committed to, stay in the convent before her dad just pulls her out of that commitment, and is trying to, or wants her to help him go around with all these different business partners to go ahead and have this scheme further going and such. And I think her performance, I thought, was pretty strong. And then the chemistry between herself and Del Toro, just as this daughter-dad duo, I felt I felt was quite endearing in some ways, even though you can tell they're sparring and butting heads in many instances, in the way that Wes Anderson usually forms himself with these kinds of relationships, whether romantic or familial. That's what he's known for in a lot of his films. And then we have Michael Cera as Bjorn. He is this tutor turned assistant or secretary to Zsa Zsa, and I'm surprised he hasn't shown up in any Wes Anderson movie prior to now, because he fits perfectly with the tone and feel as to what he's doing with his performance here, in just having this cadence and this line delivery about him. And then you further find out more about him in the integration with the story, and I think that just helps make it round out the trio that we see here. It makes it all rounded out to be three leads that I quite enjoyed following and then interacting with all the rest of the cast that are too many names to mention here. Now, with the story here, I mean, with how the vision of Wes Anderson is just framing this narrative to be, I mean, it's something that is in line with what he has done before, in the sense that it's following one person or a relationship of people, but in this case, it's following a pretty shady individual and just going around trying to have all the business partners cough up like their share of what he's contributing to make this title Phoenician scheme, and a bunch of other stuff like that. And in the way Wes Anderson does deliver it all, you know if you're into a Wes Anderson movie or not from the get-go. As I mentioned, with some of his trademark stylings that he has done in the past that is consistent with the rest of his filmography. And then you have all the interactions and just different sequences that just result in his whimsy and wit that he would carry in a lot of stuff. I mean, you would see one moment where Zsa Zsa is offering the people he's dealing business with hand grenades as a gesture, and then at one point he even goes up against two people played by Tom Hanks and who's the other one? Bryan Cranston. Tom Hanks and Bryan Cranston challenges them with the character played by Riz Ahmed to a 2-on-2 basketball game to settle something and having their share of the deal be put up. I mean, wow. That just goes to show, I mean, you know, it's one thing that you could admit that Wes Anderson's films and their styles, or his styles, are not necessarily for you, but it's another to not admit that he is creative and he is beyond any doubt someone who is always chalking up or coughing up any idea of his that is something to view. And then just the craft, I mean, the all-around technical merits with this movie, it's just so handsomely put together, like the rest of his filmography, from how everything is framed, the way the camera moves very neatly and tightly, whether it's like tracking shots going against the view like this, or going back and forth, anything like that. Just the way the camera moves, it's just like so mechanical and so like clockwork, I feel. The costuming, the sets, I mean, the place, the residence where Zsa Zsa lives, I mean, it's quite big and immaculate. I'm like, wow. And then he also has multiple other heirs too, all boys that he's not leaving everything to in case he does end up actually dying. He wants to leave it all with his daughter. And the music, a lot of the original music here is done by Alexandre Desplat, who previously won an Oscar for Wes Anderson's Grand Budapest Hotel, the first Oscar he won, I should say. And it all running together, I think the movie, you know, I was quite, you know, charmed and entertained by what Anderson brought here with the Phoenician scheme. It's about an hour and 40 minutes, and it's split up into specific acts to where he is going to different business partners and different family members also to try and get his dealings underway, as I said. And once again, you know if you're into this kind of narrative or not. And, you know, it's something that he's done time and time again before in many instances. And for one, I mean, when we find out who is actually behind all these assassination attempts, I saw that coming from a mile away with the character revealed here, and then just all of the different kinds of isms, Wes Anderson isms that are present throughout here. Some of it, you know, I think it is quite charming. I mean, I've said charming a lot in this video, but, you know, I'm personally very charmed by what I've seen Wes Anderson do. And then other times it's like, okay, you know, it's just Wes Andersoning again, like he has done for decades by now. But you know, I found this movie to be a really enjoyable time. I really enjoyed it. It is not my favorite Wes Anderson movie, not by any stretch. I mean, certainly not in stuff that he's done in recent memory. I mean, I would say that maybe I did like this more than The French Dispatch. The film he did before this, Asteroid City, I do think it's one of his better offerings, and that has a lot of heart with it as well too. But I don't think the last three movies that he has done here that I mentioned within this current decade, I don't think they come to the greatness as some other stuff that he has done, at least if you want to compare with the last decade. I mean, you have one example here with the Grand Budapest Hotel. A lot of people say that's his best movie, and yeah, got him the most Oscar attention. I love this movie as well too. And my personal favorite Wes Anderson movie has to be Moonrise Kingdom. I absolutely adore this movie. I don't think The Phoenician Scheme touches either one of these films, but again, I found myself really enjoying this movie throughout. I mean, there's quite a bit of laughs here that my audience and I had with, again, us clearly being aware of what we are watching, and this being a Wes Anderson film. And if you're a fan of Wes Anderson, I think you'll get something out of this. Your mileage will certainly vary in some instances depending on what kinds of films by Wes Anderson you were into in the first place or not. But I think that there is some value here, and I look forward to whatever he does next regardless. And yeah, he continues to prove he is one of our signature auteurs working in film today, and I definitely recommend The Phoenician Scheme. With that being said, my final verdict for The Phoenician Scheme is 4 out of 5 stars. Now, here is my review for Ballerina, or From the World of John Wick, Ballerina. Quite a clunky title. I mean, if you saw my ticket stub earlier in the intro, it just said Ballerina. And not fussing around with the extra title before the title, I don't know. The way this movie was named, yeah, it wants to make it clear that it's in the John Wick universe. And, as an action thriller, this is the 5th installment in the John Wick universe here. And it follows an assassin played by Ana de Armas, who is also a ballerina, but is training with a troupe of ballerinas turned assassins, and she wants revenge against the man played by Gabriel Byrne who murdered her father. And going into this movie, with a lot of people, I think in recent memory, I am a big fan of the John Wick films. In fact, here I have all of them on Blu-ray. So there's John Wick, the first film. I love this movie. This is my favorite of the series, I would say. Then there's John Wick Chapter 2, also very enjoyable. John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum. The only one of the series that has a subtitle like Parabellum, but okay. And then most recently, before Ballerina, which I think that is my second favorite of the series too. Just quite insane how everything's put together. And of course, these movies are touted as such because of Keanu Reeves in the titular role, the stunt work here with the directors having worked with Keanu Reeves before with stunts, and then all around just it popularizing, how these kinds of films are going, and just inspiring a whole studio that is behind John Wick to do more of these, I should say, kinds of films here. And again, Ballerina is the 5th John Wick universe film, and it specifically takes place in between chapters 3 and 4. And what was set up in chapter 3 with Angelica Houston's character being the director of this group of ballerinas turned assassins, I was intrigued to see how this was expanded more, because I believe this movie was announced after the success of chapter 3, and then Ana de Armas was announced to be cast in the lead role. And yeah, I mean, all that coming together, I was just looking forward to seeing it. And then speaking of de Armas, I love Ana de Armas. I mean, ever since her breakout role that I saw her in Blade Runner 2049, I mean, she has shown that she is quite a talented actress. Coming here to the US without knowing English and then learning lines phonetically and just getting major movie roles, I mean, that's no easy feat. And, with this film and the previous film that I have reviewed, I mean, they're both led by a Latino and Latina. So yeah, all right, Latino power right there too. I'm of Mexican descent, specifically. Yo soy mexicano. And then de Armas playing this character, her name is Eve. She was actually previously played by somebody else in chapter 3, but that got retconned technically, I guess, or recast, I should say. De Armas was recast as this role to be now playing this character, and I mean, it's an archetype that she is fitting well, and seeing the physicality that she brought previously with the last James Bond film, No Time to Die, I knew she was up to snuff to play this character, showing all of the gun fu, the all of the different hand-to-hand combat choreography, and then also handling multiple different weapons, including a flamethrower at the end, which was pretty awesome. And, her character is out for revenge, just like John Wick at the very top of the series is out for revenge. And, playing this character quite well, I think that she just fits everything that what one would expect with this kind of character. Also, eventually interacting with John Wick himself. I mean, we have a lot of returning characters here from the previous movies here, including Keanu Reeves as John Wick. At first, I think he was just supposed to be like an extended cameo, but I think he has a sizable supporting role in this movie. He shows up a bit in the beginning, interacting with the Artemis' Eve, and then is prominent in the third act here. And, he's Keanu Reeves as John Wick. I mean, we all love him as his character, and we think that he's just one of the most badass people around in Hollywood, also one of the sweetest, if you know a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff with him. And then other people that returned here. I mentioned Anjelica Huston as the director. She's great, as always, here. Ian McShane also comes back as the manager of the Continental, Winston here. And then we have also returning as the concierge of the Continental, Lance Reddick. This is sadly his final film role here, but he passed away 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago before the release of Chapter 4. And at least I should say, that's what I was going to say, at least he filmed his scenes before passing away for Ballerina. But, now that movie, John Wick Chapter 4, and now this movie specifically is his final film appearance. I mean, the little time that we got with him, he's great as his character. He's very charming as Sharon. And we have other new characters here. We have Norman Reedus basically trying to protect his daughter from the main villain of the movie, again, played by Gabriel Byrne. And, every time I see him, I'm just reminded of Daryl Dixon from The Walking Dead, because I cannot picture him without being on top of a motorcycle, riding a motorcycle, doing whatever and stuff. But for the screen time he had, I thought he was good and also worked well with the action. There is also a big player I want to mention here, Catalina Sandino Moreno, as an Academy Award nominee. Catalina, backwards. Oh my God, upside down. I messed that part up, but I'll leave it in. As an Academy Award nominee, Catalina Sandino Moreno, she was previously nominated for the Best Actress Oscar for Maria, Llena Eres de Gracia, or Maria, Full of Grace. I watched this movie for the first time a couple years ago, and what a phenomenal movie. I mean, now seeing her over 20 plus years later in a major action film like this, that is cool to see. And, just seeing her again in more projects. And her character becomes very integral as a supporting role once she is introduced, and then also more the narrative is developed and such. So, yeah, there's that. I mean, I loved seeing Sandino Moreno here, and with all the other players coming together, mainly the Armas, really entering the world of John Wick with grace and grit. I think that is a big pull and a main factor here. And then we get into how this movie is framed narratively. This movie is written by Shay Hatton, who previously wrote stuff for the John Wick films as well, too. The director of this movie is Len Wiseman, who directed the Underworld series, which I've never seen any of those movies, but I have seen the fourth Die Hard movie that he directed. Actually, look, right behind me, Die Hard, the 4-film collection of Die Hard. I do not own the 5th film. No, the 4th Die Hard film, Live Free or Die Hard, is way better than that 5th Die Hard movie, A Good Day to Die Hard. I think Live Free or Die Hard is pretty underrated. It's a pretty badass action movie on its own, and a good Die Hard sequel. And apparently behind the scenes, with how the movie was coming together, there were action scenes that were added on in addition to reshoots, apparently done by Chad Stahelski, who has directed the rest of the John Wick series. And, when I get to the action, I'll talk about that. But then also how this movie is narratively. Again, it's basically a revenge story because we have the Artemis' Eve going after the bad guy played by Gabriel Byrne. And, he does what he has to do with the role. It's a pretty standard bad guy role, and orchestrating a lot of stuff that happened in the beginning of this movie. There's an opening sequence of when Eve was younger, and then we of course see the father get killed. She wants revenge. Years later is training. We get a montage sequence of her training with this troupe of ballerinas turned assassins, and eventually she goes off on her own. Eve goes off to look for this guy, and yeah, it's standard stuff. this isn't Shakespeare. This isn't high literature or anything like that because of what you would see with the Wick universe being expanded and stuff. And some would argue that is the same thing with John Wick because a bunch of these movies are just chalked up to revenge movies and action thrillers. But is that so much a bad thing when they are done this well, I think, and further expanding the world? I didn't see the Continental TV series that was on Peacock because I heard mediocre things about that. But this as a film, this being a spin-off film and also an interquel of sorts that is expanding the Wick universe, I mean, it's more than strong and up to the task with it, and that goes in the way of how this movie is in terms of a technical scale. On an action front, I mean, these movies excel with all the stunt work. Praise to the stunt performers as always with these movies. We're not going to have them get properly recognized with the Best Stunt Design Oscar until a few years from now, but in the meantime, we can still bask in the glory as to what the actors in front of the camera and their stunt doubles are able to do. We have this one sequence where the Armistice Eve is literally fighting an entire village. And then again, I mentioned before, she's messing with flamethrowers and other kind of weapons around here. Everyday household items being used as weapons. I mean, that's kind of the forte of the John Wick films at this point. I mean, we see plates, we see ice skates and other stuff tearing up people, and then people blowing up in really extravagant fashions and, bloody messes all over the place. And in some respect, you do have to suspend your disbelief with these movies, even though they are played up to be somewhat realistic when we are seeing all of the stunts be put on display. I mean, there are certain moments that I did think that I don't think you could have survived that, or you couldn't have walked away from that completely unscathed or whatever. I mean, that was the case in some of the previous John Wick movies. It's the case with Ballerina as well too. But again, I think the way they are shot, the way they are cut, edited, framed, everything like that, we see everything on screen here. They're also creative early on, like when we get to see the contract that Eve goes after. Early on, she's in a club or a discotheque with ice scenery and ice literally around all over the place. So that was cool to see. Also cool is, as she says, the flamethrowers that she uses in the film. Again, I can't stress enough. I mean, we had like those dragon shotgun shells in John Wick Chapter 4. And then we now see flamethrowers being integrated here. Very big playing up that part towards the end of the movie with this village and taking place at night with a bunch of snow everywhere. It's visually striking. I mean, it's very well done, I think, in that sense. And again, with the story and just how the writing is, it's far from anything that you would consider to be worthy of Academy Awards in that respect. I mean, the movie was not necessarily going to be something like that. It was always going to be like something that expanded the universe and also telling its own story. Although, if you are as big a fan of the John Wick movies as I am, you're kind of going to look into this thing with a little scrutiny, because it's like, how does this exactly fit in between John Wick Chapter 3 and Chapter 4, especially with what happens at the end of Chapter 3 and how he finds himself at the beginning of Chapter 4. It's like, not exactly consistent in a way, but of course, like, that's also a way to have us see Wick back again and then also have this all come together. And, seeing, if I were to see even more of these movies or team up with Wick in one sense, I think that would be cool to see in the future. I mean, we already got John Wick Chapter 5 being announced months ago back at this year's CinemaCon, and, we know more is coming. We know more is coming with the series, and I'd say bring them on if they are going to be as strong as this film is. Is it my favorite in the John Wick universe? No. As I mentioned, the first film is still my favorite just for setting up all the universe here. Maybe I would say this is third or fourth, maybe, but even if I would say it's fourth, there's only 5 of these movies now. That is definitely not an insult in any sense, because of how well made all these movies are and just showing, I think, all the consistency within here. And, of course, I think the movie's worth watching if you're just an action junkie and stuff. I mean, I can't tell if anything was reshot or reworked or whatever, because, again, Chad Stahelski was apparently brought in to do reshoots. Whether or not I could tell they were done by Wiseman himself or Stahelski, I think they all flowed and did a good job coming together with it running at just over 2 hours. I did not think this movie overstayed its welcome in many senses, but I think, I really enjoyed Ballerina, or From the World of John Wick Ballerina. I'm just going to call it Ballerina, as everyone should have in the first place. But yeah, I really enjoyed Ballerina. If you're a fan of the John Wick series, this is something that you should see, and I definitely recommend it. With that, my final verdict for Ballerina is 4 out of 5 stars. Thank you all, as always for watching. Be sure to like this video, comment on what you thought of the Phoenician scheme and Ballerina. Social media links in the description. Subscribe to my channel for more, and I'll catch you on the next movie review.